In late 2013, Marvel Comics announced a new Ms. Marvel series. Not one starring Carol Danvers, mind you. She had already assumed the mantle of Captain Marvel at this point. If you want any more information on her backstory, I did a whole video about it. Nor would it be any of the other two women who held the mantle of Ms. Marvel.
The first of those women was Sharon Ventura, a stuntwoman turned superpower professional wrestler. Ventura would eventually get turned into a female version of the Thing from the Fantastic Four, and was appropriately renamed She-Thing in the process. Then there was Dr. Carla Soffin, better known as the villainous Moonstone, who assumed the mantle of Ms. Marvel when she was part of Norman Osborn's Avengers during the Dark Reign storyline.
This new Ms. Marvel would actually be a Muslim teenager from New Jersey named Kamala Khan. Now, Kamala was not exactly the first Muslim in mainstream comics. There were characters like Dust from Grant Morrison's new X-Men run, and DC had already introduced a Muslim Green Lantern named Simon Baz in the New 52. No, but this would be a little bit different still. Kamala would actually have Muslim voices behind her as part of the creative process, namely editor Sana Ananat, apologies if I mispronounced that name, and writer G. Willow Wilson, who was an Islamic convert. Also, what would make Kamala unique was how she would come about her powers. I finally get to talk about the Inhumans on this show.
The Inhumans were a race of beings who first appeared in the pages of Fantastic Four. Inhuman ancestors were people from the city-state of Atlantis who became subjects of genetic experimentation by the alien Kree Empire. This resulted in one of the Inhumans manifesting superpowers when exposed to vapors given off by crystals made from a mineral called Terrigen. Over time, the Inhumans would relocate their hidden city of Attilan to the moon and would occasionally become involved in the mainstream Marvel Universe, like when their leader Black Bolt became part of Tony Stark's Illuminati group.
Around 2013, Marvel suddenly began pushing the Inhumans really hard, and it really wasn't a secret as the reason why. A lot of the higher muckety-mucks at Marvel were not too happy that 20th Century Fox happened to own the movie rights to the X-Men, meaning those characters couldn't be used in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, Marvel began pushing up the idea of an Inhumans movie, since those teams have similar traits, while slowly phasing the X-Men out of existence. It didn't really work. In fact, the only ones you could really qualify as successful from this are Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, and Lunella Lafayette, aka Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. No, those characters don't count. They aren't Inhumans. And no, Daisy Mae Johnson, aka Quake, aka Skye from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., doesn't count either, as she sort of existed well before any of this happened.
The in-universe explanation behind any of this spun out of an event storyline called Infinity, which climaxed with Black Bolt detonating a Terrigen bomb in Earth's atmosphere. This in turn would spread a large cloud of Terrigen vapors all across the Earth, causing anyone with any latent inhuman genetic material to begin manifesting powers.
Today's storyline spins off of the events of Infinity, and it introduces Kamala Khan to the Marvel Universe. This is Ms. Marvel Volume 1, No Normal.
At the Circle K store, Kamala stares at a BLT sandwich. Even though she can't eat pork, the forbidden nitrates present an allure that's hard to resist. This, in turn, earns her some good-natured ribbing from her friends Nakia and Bruno, the latter of whom works at the store. Bruno is then forced to turn his attention to Zoe Zimmer, the popular girl in their high school, as she constantly mistakes the Circle K for a Starbucks. Zoe gives some backhanded compliments to Nakia and Kamala by inviting them to a kegger that night. Neither of the two girls can go, though Kamala really wants to.
I should point out that, yeah, I know they don't call it a Circle K store, they call it a Circle Q store. But much like my Hawkeye vs. Deadpool review where they made references to Uber and Nintendo Wii, I'm just going for brand recognition at this point.
After school, Kamala spends some time at home working on some Avengers fanfiction where Captain Marvel features very prominently. She then sits down to dinner with her parents, Yusuf and Maniba, and newly devout slacker brother, Amir. Kamala mentions the party and really wanting to go to it. Obviously, it doesn't work, and she eventually winds up storming off. Kamala sulks in her room. She's always been an outcast because of her faith. She's not even an immigrant. She was actually born in New Jersey, but her family still acts like they're in Pakistan. Determined to live a normal life on her own for once, Kamala sneaks out of the window and runs off to the party. Within seconds, the decision immediately comes back to bite her, as Zoe's boyfriend Josh gives Kamala some punch that is in no way spiked, except for the vodka. Bruno interjects and chews out the popular clique before taking Kamala away. Kamala just tells Bruno to leave her alone and storms off on her own as a mysterious fog begins rolling in over the Hudson.
Bruno is an honor student at Kamala's high school who's been a longtime friend of the Khan family. They've exalted his virtues on many occasions. In fact, the only thing that's holding him back is that he's not Muslim. And that's not an insensitive comment at all. Even Kamala has said that there would probably be an arranged marriage if it wasn't for Bruno's faith.
Unaware of the fog enveloping her, an embarrassed Kamala slinks home. What little chance she had of popularity is Dunyan rings. Now what does she have? It's then that she's greeted by a vision of the Avengers with Captain Marvel standing in the center. The Avengers inform Kamala that she is at a crossroads in life and her next choice will affect her destiny. Carol then asks Kamala what it is that she wants out of life. Kamala wants to be like Captain Marvel. Strong, brave, noble, and with huge
tracts of land.
Kamala soon finds herself in some type of cocoon and begins punching her way out. Once she's free, she's noticed she's changed in more ways than one. She attempts to walk and throws up, making her think that she's just intoxicated and that her limbs oddly feel heavy. Just as she appears to be regaining her faculties, Kamala overhears Zoe and Josh approaching. Wishing to stay hidden causes Kamala to literally shrink into the bushes. Josh tries taking a trip to Gropetown only for Zoe to rebuff him and wind up falling back into the Hudson River.
Well, that's just probably going to result in an entirely different form of mutation.
Knowing that even a life as shallow as Zoe's is worth saving, Kamala shifts back into being Ms. Marvel and moves in for the rescue. Others gather around as Kamala stretches her arm and enlarges her hand to scoop Zoe out of the water. Once Zoe regains consciousness, Ms. Marvel vanishes while still possessing a very enlarged hand. Kamala manages to return her hand back to normal but can't change back from Ms. Marvel, and to make matters worse, it turns out that walking around with your butt cheeks partially exposed is not as freeing as previously thought. She borrows a hoodie from a derelict and heads home. Sneaking back in through the window causes Kamala to revert back to normal, but it attracts Samir's attention. He's got news for her. It turns out that Bruno texted Yusef and Maniba, so they know she was out at the party.
Busted!
The news of Ms. Marvel's appearance and actions are all over the TV, with the main question being when and why did Carol Danvers decide to return to her old moniker? The Avengers have no comment. As for Kamala, she's grounded, only being allowed to go to school and to attend services at the mosque. She's not up for listening to the Sheikh, instead tries to talk with Nakia about what happened. She doesn't explain everything, only making vague references to both feeling and being different, leading Nakia to believe that Kamala drunkenly made out with a boy at the party. However, Bruno is on his shift, and Kamala is still mad at him for blabbing to her parents. Later at school, Kamala tries looking up any information on what exactly happened to her, only to turn up facets of World of Warcraft. As she continues searching on the computer, Bruno's brother Vic hits him up for some money, even suggesting stealing from the Circle K's register.
I should point out that Bruno is also working on a project submission for Rutgers University involving a fabric-strengthening polymer bond he's dubbed Super Snot. Yes, this will pay off later.
Kamala starts having another power flare-up and rushes off to the bathroom. She tries to avoid the women's lacrosse team by ducking into the locker room. While attempting to get a hold of her abilities, Kamala enlarges the giant side and winds up destroying most of the locker room. The commotion brings the coach, and Kamala now has detention. While in detention, Kamala gets another lashing from her mother via text message. Finally, she decides to explain everything, and I mean everything, to Bruno. She heads to the Circle K only to find it being robbed. Kamala can't call 911 because her phone's battery is out of power.
Also, that phone has a real cruel sense of humor. I mean, seriously, what phone taunts you for having a low battery?
In reality, Bruno is aware as to who's robbing the store. It's Vic, even though Vic points out the gun isn't loaded so no one's going to get hurt. Still, Kamala turns into Captain Marvel to disrupt the robbery. She grabs Vic as Bruno tries to explain everything and starts throwing the hoodlum around. However, the violent movement causes the gun, which was actually loaded the whole time, to go off. Kamala is now bleeding as Vic runs away. A panicked Bruno calls 911, and Kamala is forced to reveal everything by shifting back to normal and literally pulling the bullet out of her butt. She stopped bleeding, but trying to shift back to Carol Danvers is too painful. So Bruno tosses her a cheapo sleep aid mask as she has to demonstrate her powers to the police when they arrive. This provides enough proof that a hero is in town, just not the one that everyone is thinking about. Afterwards, Bruno explains the situation to Kamala. Vic is in deep to someone called the Inventor and was holding up the store to pay it back. Kamala wants to make things right, but she'll actually need a costume first. So she races home to find her old burkini.
A burkini is a full-body bathing suit that, while it covers the whole body, is light enough for active swimming. Although it is primarily used by women in Islamic cultures for modesty purposes, it has also been used by those who are super sensitive to sunlight. If my Google search history ever gets investigated, it's going to look really weird.
Bruno hacks the GPS in his brother's phone and tracks the location down to a rundown house just outside of Jersey City. Bruno has Kamala meet him at that house, and she proceeds to shrink down so she can sneak past the two best stoners money can buy and infiltrate the domicile. However, once inside, she gets jumped by a group of attack drones. She smashes several of them and soon finds Vic tied up in the basement. Unfortunately, all the commotion has brought quite a bit of attention.
By the way, this isn't the inventor, it's just a chief underling named Doyle.
Kamala prepares a mega punch, but Doyle calls more attack drones to counter it. Kamala is cut and she's left no other options but to miniaturize and leave. She slinks back home, disappointed and famished. She eats herself into a food coma at the kitchen table. A couple hours later, Muniba finds her daughter and lays into her once again for sneaking out. Yusef intervenes and gets Muniba to calm down before talking with Kamala about everything. There's a reason why the family is so hard on her, and it's not just because of tradition. Amir was a very difficult pregnancy and delivery, and the doctors advised the cause not to have more children, as it could be fatal for both mother and child. Then, 5 years later, Kamala was born, healthy and safe, which resulted in her name, as Kamala means perfection. Kamala was a miracle baby. She doesn't need to exceed expectations, just not screw things up. The two make peace, but Kamala is still grounded, and she now has to meet with the Sheikh.
Given that, Kamala spends much of the next day in a training montage with Bruno, I'm beginning to wonder if the cons have any idea what the term grounded means.
Kamala spends much of the next day training to get a better handle on her abilities. Namely, she's too slow whenever her size changes. Bruno also coats Kamala's burkini in the super snot polymer he's been putting together, and she puts the finishing touches by adding the Ms. Marvel lightning bolt. Soon night falls and Kamala is with Bruno again at the house for another rescue attempt. She shrinks down to infiltrate and proceeds to use one of Doyle's drones against him. Ms. Marvel then grabs Vic and enlarges to escape the house, and everyone gets to safety. The next day, though, it turns out that Bruno was spotted at the home as the Circle K has been vandalized. Again, this time with an effigy of Ms. Marvel strung up outside. Still, Ms. Marvel is ready for a fight, but the inventor isn't giving up either.
Yeah, that's what they're going with. A giant cockatiel. Anyway, we have one last story that was part of the Marvel Point One preview special. It's a very short story in which Kamala goes up against Robosaurus. I'm guessing the inventor couldn't quite get Marlon Brando to do the voiceover this time.
You crazy car. I don't know whether to eat you or kiss you.
Ms. Marvel squares off with the giant mechanoid in a junkyard, and she makes quick work of the beast by burying it under some cars. Unfortunately, it's caused her to be late for her cousin's wedding rehearsal. She rushes back to the Circle K for a change of clothes from Bruno, and it doesn't include a shower, unfortunately, as the junkyard sketch accompanies her to the ceremony, resulting in another grounding.
And that concludes our look at Ms. Marvel Volume 1, No Normal. How was it? Well, I've always been a big fan of Adrian Alfota's artwork ever since Runaways, and so that's always a really big plus, as in this case. Also, I really think the characterization is good here, with some great balance in the dramatic storytelling. It really strikes a good chord between believable, serious, and humorous at times. There's some really funny points in all of this. And I do think it's pretty well paced. There's not really a lot of dead spots in the storytelling. That being said, the storytelling can still get a little repetitive at times. I mean, Kamala gets grounded 3 separate occasions. Really? Also, the Point One issue kind of feels a little superfluous. It doesn't really add anything. It's cute, it's fun, it's not bad, it's just kind of dull. And I also kind of wish that, maybe Nakia, who was pretty prominent in the first part of this, she sort of disappears. I wish that, maybe she played a bigger role in the later part of this story as well. Like, maybe she could have been privy to Kamala's secret as well. And also, I'll say, the inventor leaves me feeling kind of iffy. It just seems a little bit of a weak attempt to recreate another, maybe lesser Marvel villain, like, say, the Mad Thinker, who's shown up in a lot of Spider-Man stories, or another inventor character that I just can't think of at this point. But still, like, we couldn't have Kamala go up against one of those. Instead, we have to create a giant cockatiel man. It just... normally I like the creation of new characters, but that one just strikes a little hollow. But really, those are all minor quibbles. This is a really enjoyable book, and I have no problem recommending this to anyone. I'm going to give Ms. Marvel Volume 1, No Normal, an A. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytime for Cat Productions. There, you can request a tray to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.